Turkey have recovered a Bible thought to be 1,000 years old. The Holy Book, which was found in the central Turkish city of Tokat, is written in the Old Assyriac language.
A recent discovery of a Bible dating back thousands of years found in Turkey. This ancient text has sparked controversy by challenging traditional Christian beliefs with its content. Inside its pages are revelations that have astonished the religious community. What exactly does this forbidden text contain that led to its illegal status? Who authored it, and how credible are its claims? Come along with us as we explore the puzzling mystery of the ancient 3,000-year-old Bible, uncovering its chilling secrets. Number 1. The Gospel of Barnabas. In the ancient city of Tokat, in Turkey, historians excavated an incredible book, referred to as the Book of St. Barnabas. While there are many ancient books, this one is different because of its shocking discoveries and unknown origins. The book is rather special since it contains both the Old and New Testaments, but presents the same events from a different viewpoint. It implies that Jesus, though admitted to have lived on earth, was not crucified, a striking difference from the traditional beliefs. Scholars have known that there are some minor inconsistencies among biblical texts, and this claim is unique in this regard. This discovery has caused curiosity and discussion among historians and theologians.
Is quite frankly jaw-dropping. Basically, anything that can happen is happening.
The Book of St. Barnabas was found in a somewhat unusual way, not by regularly organized archaeological digs, but in the hands of antiquities thieves who were attempting to smuggle it together with other valuable artifacts. This book, by St. Barnabas, who was Paul's associate, was made from animal skins, with each page painstakingly written in difficult-to-replicate complex handwriting. Written in Syriac, a dialect of Aramaic spoken in Jesus' time, the manuscript might be about 1,500 years old, or even older. This, in turn, raises issues with Jesus' command of language, as most biblical material is written in Greek. Nevertheless, the region was multilingual, and thus Jesus used Aramaic, Greek, and maybe Hebrew, thus showing the linguistic diversity of the era. However, it is its age and the doubtful issues associated with it that make the Book of St. Barnabas more and more interesting to scholars and believers seeking new interpretations of the ancient religious texts. Get ready to be stunned by what was written in the pages of the Book of St. Barnabas. But before then, how was this book found? And who is this Barnabas? Number 2. How was the illegal Bible discovered? The finding of the book in Tokat, a city famous for smuggling unknown artifacts, increases the excitement of the book. In 2015, the city stood out when a man suspected of smuggling had in his possession a painting by Vincent van Gogh titled Orphan Man Standing. Alongside the Book of St. Barnabas, Turkish police also found an expensive jewelry collection, 53 ancient coins, and 2 arrowheads. The damaged binding notwithstanding, the book's illustrations, decorated with gold leaf, are said to portray images of Jesus and Mary. The essence of these discoveries remains a mystery to the researchers. As such, they are left to ponder whether or not this ancient manuscript is authentic and what its significance is. The Book of St. Barnabas, or Gospel of St. Barnabas, contains only about 50 pages, the majority of which are fragile but relatively good. The pages, despite their faded appearance, are amazing, and biblical scholars still working on their interpretation. Scientific examination had proved the book to be real and not fake. It's worth mentioning that there were 2 different individuals with the name Barnabas in the Bible.
That don't make it into the collection of the Bible, both the Hebrew Bible.
And there was also more than one John in the New Testament. Barnabas, whom many Christians know today, was an early Christian missionary from the 1st century. He was a Hellenist Jew who joined the Jerusalem church after the death of Christ and disposed of his belongings by giving out his wealth generously. Barnabas, along with other Cypriots, established the church in Antioch and preached in 48 AD. He invited St. Paul to join him in the missionary work before they disagreed, and Barnabas went back to Cyprus. His death is shrouded in mystery, and only the 5th century forgery entitled Acts of Barnabas claims that he was martyred and buried in Cyprus. Certain ancient church authorities also tied him up with Alexandria, Egypt, where he was acknowledged as the author of the Letter of Barnabas. There is evidence that he might be the author of the biblical letter to the Hebrews as well. Tomb of St. Barnabas was revealed in 488 AD near the monastery of St. Barnabas in Salamis, Cyprus, a city where Paul and Barnabas founded a Christian community. On the other hand, it is necessary not to mix up the Gospel of Barnabas with the Epistle of Barnabas. The latter, while not included in the Holy Bible, does not contain the controversial content found in the recently discovered 2000-year-old book. Now, let's dive into the deep realm of the Gospel of Barnabas, overlooking its pages. Number 3. Terrifying revelations from the Book of Barnabas. Dated back to the late 1st century, this can't be attributed to the Barnabas mentioned in the New Testament with certainty. There is confusion about the person who wrote the letters. The church custodians who found them merely assumed it might be Barnabas. While the letter has historical value, this document was never acknowledged officially as a part of the established text of the church. The Epistle of Barnabas, which was also called the Letter of Barnabas, is one of the earliest Christian writings mentioned by the early Christian leaders. The letter that Barnabas is said to have written didn't name him as the author. This was expressed by commentators such as Clement of Alexandria. The epistle conveys its message through the term gnosis, which is knowledge, and while it opposed Gnostic, it stood with the orthodox beliefs of early Christianity. It is argued that the Epistle of Barnabas was based on the oral traditions of the Old Testament and the Mishnah, which used biblical numerology. However, the author gives hints at an early Christian understanding of faith. The last part outlines contrasting sets of positive commands known as the way of light and the way of darkness, reflecting Jewish Christian ethics and opposition to Satan. The early church fathers, including Origen, made use of the Epistle of Barnabas among other documents, and Origen himself regarded it as an authentic work of Barnabas, though not of the same divine inspiration as the New Testament. Some early Bibles included this text, indicating that it was considered a text of reference, although not a holy scripture. On the contrary, the Gospel of Barnabas has no apostolic support and was created about 1,000 years later than the time of Barnabas. It has never been mentioned by any church father or historian, which shows its late date of inception. The Epistle of Barnabas is still a useful resource among believers, providing insights into early Christian thought. The Gospel of Barnabas is looked down upon because it is suspected to have come up through dubious origins, which may be true or not, but it has a lot of contradictions. Number 4. Why is the Gospel of Barnabas banned from the Bible? This old text denies that Jesus was crucified, but suggests it was Judas who was crucified, while Jesus himself went to heaven alive. In addition, it contradicts the commonly held belief that Jesus is the Son of God, declaring instead that he was a prophet sent to deliver God's oracles. The book further charges the Apostle Paul with being a fake. The fact that these claims have been found out has brought controversy within the Christian community and attracted media attention, as well as scholars and historians from all around the world. Even the Vatican has stated that it wants to see the book as well. These affirmations break with the old theories and raise questions about the book's authenticity. The 16th century was a period when all the books of the New Testament were believed to have been written before 100 AD by eyewitnesses or those who interviewed eyewitnesses. The authenticity of the 4 Gospels in the New Testament has never been questioned since the beginning. Even if the Gospel of Barnabas had been written during the time of the Apostles, it would not have been regarded as part of the Bible because of its historical and doctrinal blunders. For example, the Gospel of Barnabas says that Jesus did not say that he was the Messiah and claims that Jesus was born when Pontius Pilate was governor. On the other hand, the historical records reveal that Pilate carried out this duty in 26 or 27 AD. Furthermore, the Gospel of Barnabas has gained much popularity among Muslims because it conforms to the teachings of the Quran. Both texts suggest that Jesus did not die on the cross, a belief found in Surah 4, 157 of the Quran. It is believed by many researchers that the Gospel of Barnabas was written during the 15th and 16th centuries AD by Muslims to degrade the traditional biblical message of Jesus. This theory is confirmed by the sudden popularity and widening of the Gospel of Barnabas among Muslims. Therefore, what is the reason that the Book of Barnabas is not in the Bible? This can be understood by realizing how the Bible came to be. One thing that should be known is that the Bible was put together by Jewish leaders in the 2nd AD, and it was the cause of the confusion and circulation of books then. Who knows? Maybe the book was one of them. 692 leaders came to compile the New Testament, and a lot of books did not make it to the Bible. What is essential is that the contents of the Bible were chosen with care. Every bit of information in the Bible was intentionally included, and if the account in the Gospel of Barnabas were true, it would have been purposefully excluded in favor of more canonical texts. Going back to the contradictions of the Gospel of Barnabas, one of the strangest facts that left theologians and archaeologists in awe was disclosed at the beginning of the book. Initially, Jesus is referred to as the Christ. The Lord has come to us through the prophet Jesus Christ these days. Page 2. However, as the narrative progresses, Jesus disclaims being the Messiah. Jesus replied and said, "I am not the Messiah," in chapter 42. The incoherence is because the author didn't know that Christ is the Greek word for Messiah. Moreover, the text states that someone else is the Messiah, but not Peter, Paul, or John the Baptist, who one would expect. Instead, it places a name that is not found in the Holy Bible. You can guess the name in the comment. In chapter 3, the book incorrectly tells about the joint rule of Herod and Pilate in Judea during Jesus' birth, which is a historical error, as these two never governed there simultaneously. Also, in chapters 20 and 21, the book says Jesus sailed to Nazareth and received a warm welcome, and then he went to Capernaum. It mentions Nazareth being a fishing village, but in reality, Nazareth is located around 14 kilometers from the Sea of Galilee in a mountain range. The error indicates that the author could be misinformed about first-century Palestine. Moreover, the Gospel of Barnabas states that there are 9 heavens before paradise, and that paradise is so large that it cannot be measured by men. The sacred text says the distance between the 2 heavens is a journey of 500 years, and paradise is greater than all the earth and heavens combined. This description is similar to Dante's Divine Comedy, written in the 14th century, which describes 9 heavens. Nevertheless, there is no other description of the 9 heavens except Dante's. This raises the question, could the writer of the Gospel of Barnabas be imitating Dante? If the book was indeed written before the 13th century, as some say, it should have been included in the Dead Sea Scrolls. However, the Gospel of Barnabas was not in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Such contradictions are not specific to Christianity alone. Islam also deals with the concepts of conflicting ideas, including marriage. The Quran states that a woman has to be bound to one man only, but it does not restrict a man to one woman. Muslim men can marry multiple wives, as written in Quran 4:3, and an indefinite number of female slaves in Quran 70:30. The Gospel of Barnabas promotes the biblical concept of marriage, stating that it unites a man and a woman equally. Let a man be satisfied with the wife who his Creator has given him, and let him forget all about the other woman, in chapters 100-115. This is in line with the biblical perspective on marriage as a sacred connection between a man and a woman. The Quran teaches that Mary had pain when she gave birth to Jesus, and withdrew with him to a far place, with the pangs of childbirth driving her unto the trunk of a palm tree. Quran 19:22-23. Nevertheless, the Gospel of Barnabas depicts a different version of the story, referring to Mary, who was surrounded by a heavenly light and gave birth to Jesus without experiencing any pain, chapter 3. As the Quran states that there are 7 heavens, the Gospel of Barnabas claims that there are 9 heavens. The most important discrepancy is the Messiah's identity. The Quran identifies Jesus as the Messiah. Allah giveth thee glad tidings of a word from him, whose name is the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary. Quran 3:45. While the Gospel of Barnabas claims that Jesus is not the Messiah and names Muhammad as the Messiah, Jesus was honest and stated, "I am not the Messiah," chapter 42. It then mentions the blessed name of the Messiah Muhammad in chapter 97. These beliefs oppose the teachings of the Quran and mainstream Islamic ideology. The Gospel of Barnabas has a very distinct approach from that of Orthodox Christian beliefs, and most likely the book was written over 1400 years after the original Bible compilation. According to some historians, yet another reason for the exclusion of the Gospel of Barnabas from the Bible could be the lack of an account of St. Barnabas's death in the Bible. He is known as the only saint who is not referred to in any of the canonical scriptures, as in the case of Enoch and his book. Number 5. The controversial Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch, which is believed to have been written around 200 BCE and is attributed to Enoch.
Gary Stearman and I are going to look at the ancient Book of Enoch,
The seventh of the 10 patriarchs who lived before the Great Flood, as recorded in the book of Genesis in the Bible. This book contains shocking revelations about the hideous things that led to the corruption of humanity in previous ages. It also talks about angels who descended to earth to have children with women. These children would grow to be giants called Nephilims. The Book of Enoch, which was widely accepted and read among the early Christians and Jews, was suddenly banned from the Bible. Leaving the Book of Enoch out of the present Bible caused us to speculate about the potential unsettling facts that were withheld from us in its pages. The book has expanded our views on history and clarified the enigma of the bygone creatures that were said to be giants with tails and possess extraordinary wisdom. The Book of Enoch comprises 5 sections: the Book of Watchers, the Similitudes of Enoch, the Astronomical Book, the Book of Dreams, and the Epistle of Enoch. The Book of Watchers is where the origin of the Nephilim is explained. This book says these giants were the children of the Watchers, who are fallen angels sent down from heaven to watch over people. Soon, those angels became involved with the people, and as a consequence, the Nephilim products of mating. The Nephilim, who were thought to be giants and savages, constituted a threat to humanity. Nevertheless, they were gifted with intelligence that was inherited from the fallen angels. God, angered by the actions of the Watchers, imprisoned these fallen angels in an underground prison deep within the earth to prevent further harm, as recorded in 1 Enoch 21:10. They broke the commandment of the Lord and were imprisoned. This place is a prison house of the angels. They are detained here forever. Enoch turned out to be the mediator between God and the Watchers, who were locked up. Nevertheless, despite his efforts, nothing changed. The scrolls strongly relate to Enoch's journeys as a mediator between heaven and earth, flying with angels and watching the rivers, mountains, and ends of the earth from above. While the fallen angels were imprisoned, their children, the Nephilim, received the opposite fate. Before the flood, the Nephilim committed many sins and did lots of evil deeds, causing a constant war between good and evil for those who were righteous people. God decided to clean the earth with a great flood, erasing everything except Noah and those in the ark with him. Nevertheless, the Nephilim spirits, being of another species, could not follow the same route as the human souls after departure. They stayed on earth as spirits and searched for the bodies of humans that they could occupy in order to keep their influence. Did they manage to settle down here on earth to further the development of our planet? Yes, the spirits of Nephilim didn't have to search far to find suitable hosts. They came into contact with people like Noah, which may sound unusual. Noah used to be referred to as a righteous man, even in the midst of the evil around him. After the flood, though, something awful happened. He planted a vineyard, drank so much that he got drunk and did the most vulgar acts. Another version of the story implies that one of his sons in the ark with him was not a human but a Nephilim. The Book of Enoch, which is regarded as a myth by some, is mentioned multiple times in the Holy Bible in relation to Nephilim. According to the Book of Numbers 13:33, 10 of the 12 spies reported that they saw them living in Canaan, which was said to be so large that the Israelites seemed to be like locusts. The words fallen angels, Nephilim, or giants are also found in Ezekiel 32 and 27, as well as in the Deuterocanonical books Judith 16:6, Wisdom 14:6, Sirach 16:7, and Baruch 3:26-28. You've heard about the story of Goliath in the Bible, who was a giant with a height of 10 feet and a width of 6 feet in the lineage of the Nephilim. Besides his immense height, he was said to be like a walking bronze statue, adorned with bronze armor and weapons. But that was not the first time a giant was mentioned and seen by the Israelites. Number 6. The Den of Giants, Canaan Land. Goliath wasn't Israel's first encounter with giants. On this trek from Egypt to Canaan, the homeland of giants, they came face to face with these giants. The giant races of the Canaanites, measuring between 10 and 15 feet tall and 6.5 feet wide, made up this mix. The Israelites had to do with those giants, but they conquered them before they took Canaan as their land. And this is where the most exciting part comes in. The Holy Bible states that they met each other's giant, King Og of Bashan, who was 15 feet tall. He was so massive that he needed an iron bed just to accommodate himself, as written in Deuteronomy 3:11. If you are a Bible scholar, you are aware that Goliath had 5 giant brothers and sons who were all mentioned in the Holy Bible. The fact is, giants have indeed been walking among us since the very beginning of mankind. One example of a famous traveler and explorer, Marco Polo, described his meetings with a race of giants in Zanzibar who were so strong that they could lift and carry 4 average men at a time without any effort. The inhabitants of present-day Tangier, Morocco, say that Antiochus the giant was the one who founded their city. According to Irish legend, there was a giant by the name of Finn McCool who completed the Giant's Causeway in the northeast corner of Ireland. Along with these tales, ancient Greek mythology also includes giants' stories. Maybe if giants did exist, as is suggested by historical evidence from many countries, then the Book of Enoch would be less a story of symbols and more a book based on historical events. Now, who would have thought that those mythical figures with incredible characteristics might have been the descendants of this angelic race of people? According to the legend, Enoch is the founder of astronomy, the one who compiled the solar calendar and many more inventions. It is really amazing to know that this significant book could have been removed from the Bible. Some of them assert that the Book of Enoch inspired the Book of Genesis because of the same storylines. However, why should such a book be destroyed? Why are we just discovering them? To understand all these, we'll have to go back in our harsh history. Number 7. The Great Persecution. In AD 64, Christians were accused of burning Rome, and in 303 AD, Emperor Diocletian issued the order to seize and burn the Christian scriptures. Even during the Dark Ages, around 500 AD, Bibles were burned with their owners, and literacy in general was forbidden. This is the reason why such books and similar ones have been hiding from the authorities and the wider public for many generations. Now we have the books of 2 men whose deaths were not mentioned in the Bible and were therefore not included in the Holy Bible. Why should this be a coincidence, or is there more to it? There are also other books from the Christian Bible that are missing. The Bible that is most known and widely used is based on a collection of books, which is different from other versions due to the omission of more than 19 books, including 5 Gospels, 14 epistles, and other pieces. These disqualified texts were mostly neglected by churches, particularly the Catholic Church, for various reasons. The early Christians used to reject these books because they were regarded as heretics and didn't completely match the 66 canonical books that now compose the modern Bible. While these excluded texts are valuable in offering a chance to explore the knowledge contained and find details not found in the canonical books, some of them should be treated with caution as they do not align with the canon. The books that were not contained in the Bible were simply disregarded because of their improper dating, lack of historical authenticity, and teachings that were not accepted by the early church. For example, theologians, after scrutinizing the excluded books with the exception of the first Maccabees, came to the conclusion that books like the second, third, and fourth Maccabees had no validity. The Synoptic Gospels and Johann Gospel are the earliest ones and are confirmed by many manuscripts. They follow the teachings of the first Christians, and these books have also been authenticated, unlike other Gospels like the Gospel of Judas, the Gospel of Mary, and the Gospel of Thomas. The point is the fact that the books that are not part of the Bible just do not have the same historical relevance as those included. and they must be excluded unless they are found to be real documents. Another illustration is the Gospel of Thomas. In 1945, some farmers from the city of Nag Hammadi, Egypt, were digging and came across an earthenware jar in the ground. From all the texts in the collection, there was one that starts with, "These are the secret sayings which the living Jesus spoke, and which Didymus Judas Thomas recorded," and ends with the Gospel according to Thomas. The Bible is a very important document and the most-selling book in the world, having sold over 6 billion copies. This means that if we add books to the Bible, each book added must be verified to be true, or we're simply inviting confusion into the history of humanity. The Bible does not mention how Barnabas died, but it is said that he was martyred because of his faith. Similar to a few other apostles, he was reported to have been either stoned to death or burned in Salamis, Cyprus. In Acts 15:11, Barnabas and Paul delivered a message of motivation in Antioch before their argument made them split. The sharpest disagreement between them came when they could not agree on taking John Mark with them after he left them earlier. As a result, Barnabas went to Cyprus with his cousin John Mark, while Paul went to Syria and Cilicia with Silas. However, after that, Paul said something mysterious. In the Galatians letter, Paul used sharp words about his friend and co-missionary, explaining that by their double-dealing, even Barnabas was led astray. Is it possible that Barnabas never repented and wrote the book in error? Although it could be true of Barnabas, Enoch walked faithfully with God. He himself said so, which means it is impossible that he wrote down any falsehoods. Hence, what should we go for? It is unrealistic to expect that a book written about 2,000 years ago by people during a turbulent period of war and terror will be 100% accurate. In addition, how do we tell a Bible from a book? It does not matter how old the text is because lies can be easily put on paper through authorship. It is also important to remember that most writers were against the movement of Christians at this time, so such a book could be someone's diary. What do you think about the legend of Bigfoot? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to see more videos.